teachers do an incredible, difficult job that I can't do. And when you go into being a tutor, you're no longer delivering content. What you're doing is helping to hone skills, and that is a different thing. That is much more about a dialogue and a conversation and a relationship. My why at the moment is all about how to get people to just enjoy learning, because learning's fun. It really is. And if it isn't, then you're doing it wrong.
Even from the age of about 11, there are some really difficult words that children are expected to know. One that appears on my regular spelling lists is the word definitely.
If you don't enjoy it, then for God's sake, don't do it, first of all. And if you don't enjoy it, then your students will be sat there watching the clock, and they will not benefit from it. You have to pay for that sort of comedy, okay?
And because you're a professional tutor, the hourly rate is higher. Yeah, I get it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Qualified Tutor Podcast. I'm your host, Ludo Miller, and I'll be interviewing tutors and thought leaders from across the tutoring landscape to inspire, inform, and motivate you to become the best tutor you can be. The Qualified Tutor community is a safe and supportive space for tutors who love to learn and grow. We offer training, resources, ideas, and a chance to connect with like-minded tutors. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join our Qualified Tutor community at www.qualifiedtutorcommunity.org or find it in the show notes.
Good evening and welcome to our third Late Night Live podcast with me, your host, Ludo Miller, and our guests tonight, Jack Simmons, Nicola Birkinshaw, Amanda Cremona, and Richard Ashleford. These four tutors we've brought together this evening to discuss the topic of being a professional tutor, something that has been a long-term value of Qualified Tutor, is the idea that tutors are a professional industry and that along with that title comes many aspects of tutoring. And some of those we're going to get into tonight. Some of those we're not going to have time for. And some of those we're going to leave you thinking about this evening. So Jack Simmons is a tutor and a specialist educator for nudge education, and many of you will know him from the Qualified Tutor community. He's been leading the facilitation for our training programs for a long while now. So we are very delighted to have Jack with us. Nicola Birkinshaw is an English and history tutor, and her website, if you'd like to find out more about her after this evening, is just that, englishandhistorytutor.com. So Nicola is a real expert of online tutoring, and we're going to be tapping into a little bit of that this evening. Amanda Cremona has featured on one of these Late Night Live podcasts already. She is a wonderful assister of children with dyslexia and has also worked in many schools in her local area in Bedfordshire as a supply teacher and as a SEND specialist. Richard Ashleford is one of our oldest Qualified Tutor friends. He's been there since the very, very beginning. And by oldest, I do not mean the age that he is. I mean the time that he has been with us. With our podcast listeners this evening, you won't see the Qualified Tutor certificate behind Richard's head there, but that is a marker of the professional development that Richard has committed to over lockdown. So we're going to be learning a little bit more about that this evening. So welcome to the four of you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're going to dive right in to the conversation, because that's quite enough of my voice. We want to hear from you. So, Amanda, I'm going to start with you on this one. And you've actually already answered this question during the Love Tutoring Festival, so your answers should be nice and polished for this one. But, Amanda, what is your why as a tutor?
I was actually trying, because I gave this on Monday, I was actually trying to think of more of my why. But it still does really boil down to helping those that are really struggling, finding out why they're struggling, empowering parents to deal with school for whatever their children's problems are. And as I said on Monday, really from being self-employed for the last year or so now is trying to make some kind of change within, the whole community of the dyslexia and SEN sort of field, bringing awareness and knowledge to people. So that's my why, and working with lovely kids. I've got some really great students at the minute, and they make it lots of fun too.
Amanda, your why is the way that you do things. So both are correct just now. Nicola, can I turn to you next? What is your why as a tutor?
I think last time we spoke about this, I think I said to you that it kind of changes hour by hour and day by day, depending on my mood and what's happening. But today, I think my big why my big why at the moment is very much about the pandemic that we've all been experiencing and going through, and the stresses that that's put on so many kids and parents and families and schools. And my big why at the moment is to get people to stop panicking and thinking about, how am I going to get through this exam? How am I going to get to and do this? How am I going to catch up? Which is a phrase I don't allow anyone to use anymore. We don't talk about catching up. So my why at the moment is all about how to get people to just enjoy learning, because learning's fun. It really is. And if it isn't, then you're doing it wrong. And to think about progress, just being better tomorrow than you were today. And that's it. And everything else will just happen naturally. So that's my why at the moment. Ask me tomorrow, it'll be different.
I'm actually going to ask you at the end of this conversation, and maybe in the middle as well, just to see if there are some changes in your responses. Richard.
Yeah. What is my why? It's easy to say, well, what motivates any of us to go to work? It's the pay, isn't it? It's the money. But the truth is, you don't do tutoring for money. The two just don't make sense, because there isn't enough money as an independent small-time tutor like I am. It's not big enough to make your fortune. I do it because I enjoy it, and I enjoy working with the kids. I like seeing them develop, and I've been doing it for 15 years, and I ain't going to stop until somebody says to me, I don't want you anymore. But nobody's said that yet, so I'm going to carry on for as long as they'll have me.
Love it.
That's a very complete answer, very honest answer, Richard.
Yeah, I'm always honest, Ludo.
Yeah, well, Jack, can we turn to you finally for this question?
You can, yeah. I think I'm going to echo what most people have already shared. I'm here to make a change. I think that's really important, but also, that change is for me too. Tutoring makes me better. It helps me feel better. So that is definitely a huge factor into my why, for sure. Excellent.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks so much, the four of you. There were themes across that, but you didn't come out with the same answer, which is brilliant, because we can draw from four different perspectives, which will help to keep the diversity of these responses nice and strong. So the title of this podcast is Being a Professional Tutor, and we can't, I don't think, progress in this conversation without a little bit more of your ideas and thoughts about what it really means to be a professional tutor as opposed to a non-professional tutor or another kind of tutor. So, Nicola, can I turn to you on this one first? What, in your eyes, what does it mean to be a professional tutor?
Okay, so this is the question that's quite hard for me to answer, because to be perfectly honest, I don't consider myself to be particularly professional. I put that word professional in the same box as branding and marketing and things like that, things that I don't really want to have anything to do with. But since it's what I spend about 40 hours a week doing, that I suppose I've got to kind of embrace it, whether I like it or not. So when I'm talking about being professional as a tutor, I am thinking as distinct from teaching. I'm thinking about it as a support to somebody who is already being taught elsewhere, whether it be being homeschooled or at school. And it's about providing a relationship and a conversation that is guided by my knowledge, by my professional knowledge, my subject knowledge, and helping someone, again, it's that thing about progression, moving from where they are to where they want to be. And obviously, I mean, there's so many different strands to tutoring. There are certain things that people want to embrace it as a tutor, like a particular area that they're interested in. I mean, for me, I don't get involved in like 11 pluses and things like that. It's got no interest. It's not my skill set. But I think people who come to me, who sort of seek me out, come to me for a particular fix, if you like, or a particular area of development. And I think that's what makes you a professional tutor. When you've got your, I hate to say this, when you've got your brand and you know what it is that you can offer, that is different and that is unique and is special.
Yeah, I certainly think part of being a tutor that takes their next steps is in finding that niche. Many tutors will enter the market saying, "Oh yeah, no, I do everything from year 4, key stage 2 to GCSE. I can do English, I can do maths, I can do history. I did science. I can do that kind of tutor is a tutor who's trying to spread the net wide and find work quickly. And the tutors that we speak to on a day-to-day basis, the professional tutors we speak to, they have their niche and they've begun to find some kind of market share and kind of either in their local area or kind of on the online sphere. So absolutely, kind of great definition there. Richard, was there a moment that you felt that you had become a professional tutor?
Yeah, I've always called myself a private tutor. In fact, it says so on my business card. Private tutoring in your own home. But when I did the qualified tutor course last year, I realised that it's about doing a private tutoring job to a professional standard. Which means that we've got standards and we've got to maintain them. And I've been a member of the TTA for quite a few years, and when you read the detail of things like the code of conduct and such, it does demand quite a high professional standard. You can't get away with this job on the back of an envelope, So I've just bought a new academic diary. It starts in September.
Was that one of the criteria?
Why would a diary start in September? But and it's the first time that I think that was the first time that I realised that it was a professional job. And so I take the point that Nicola raises, but I do see us as professional people. Yeah. Okay. Even though we're not doctors or dentists, we don't earn that kind of money.
Well, certainly doctors and dentists and lawyers have to adhere to minimum professional standards. So, whether that's chicken or egg, that is part of the conversation there, Richard. Amanda, can I turn to your thoughts here?
Sure. I think for me, where I would say a professional tutor, mine has morphed into that since going self-employed. I mean, I've been doing tutoring for 13, 14 years on and off, but it was always as with the school I was working at, if a parent asked, and the school allowed, because they did actually stop it with the school staff, but then I would do that. So I'd maybe have a couple of children on a Saturday. So I've always done that, but it was just like a sideline kind of thing. But then I gave up my job 18 months ago, just over, and to do this, and it's changed. And I think I'd be absolutely open that joining qualified tutor and doing the qualification at the same time Richard did, actually, we were on the same cohort, I think. Yes. Richard has changed has changed my view. It's made me find my niche. It's made me realise, actually, no, this is what I'm good at. And you guys have probably a lot of, you Ludo particularly, have given me a lot of confidence with that. It's actually, this is my niche. Exactly that. Actually, I have realised that my knowledge on the dyslexia and some of the SEN is more than average. And so that's my niche. And so I've gone into that. And now, all my students are in that kind of realm. So for me, it's gone from sort of doing a bit of tutoring just because somebody asked, which is, I think, very often some to actually, this is my job. And it will be what I make it. And that depends on what the particular agency you might want to work with, whether you want to do your own private marketing, and to a point, again, I've got a website now that, I can be found on and things like that. So it is my job. And I love it. I absolutely love the flexibility. I love that actually, if you think, do you know what, I need a day off next week, or, well, not that when you've got set things, but, actually next term I'm not going to book anybody in on a Friday or whatever, then that's what you do. But again, that's all determined on what price point you're at, what your need is as an income as well. But, so I can do that.
Ludo, can I
to me
just...
being Sorry, but to me, being a
Amanda.
professional tutor it's my main world now, if you like. Sorry, Richard.
Sorry, Adele, I didn't want to... Can I just say that Amanda and I have consulted each other professionally in the last 12 months? Yeah.
We have.
So, and that was one of the benefits of a qualified tutor.
Yeah. We have. We've done a swap on that. So Richard asked me about whether I thought one of his students was maybe dyslexic, and me, because I've usually taught younger students and I'm getting into the sort of English GCSE kind of work, but for people that are trying to scrape their grade 4, if you like, because they're struggling. And so I got an essay and I sent it to Richard and said, what else, is this good enough kind of thing, just to give me some kind of measure. So we've got there, and it's great on this community to do that.
It's a good effect as well.
I think you maybe touched on something else there as well, Amanda, which was, that part of being a professional tutor is having your own website, which maybe is something that we can touch on a little bit further there. It's made you at least feel like someone on the internet can come to your page and learn more about you, rather than just being through word of mouth. And actually, I'm going to draw on Martina's question that Martina submitted earlier on in the community earlier this week. And Jack, I'm going to turn to you for this one. And it follows off the theme of what we've been talking about at what stage you go from being whatever you were before to a professional tutor. And that question that Martina submitted was kind of, how did you come to be a professional tutor? And in that, we mean, how long did it take for it to become a kind of a full-time income, or do you just do what you do kind of alongside a kind of supplementary income?
Well, I could spin you a yarn for the rest of the podcast, Ludo, with that question, I think. So I think that is entirely dependent on, your financial circumstances, where you find yourself. So for anyone who doesn't really know anything about me, I have been an eternal flitter for the last, 5-6 years. Every year I just relocate to a new place and do something else. But all of those things have kind of had a music and or educational theme. And so it was actually COVID that turned me to tutoring. I've always taught singing on the side, which we never really talk about in terms of tutoring, but I guess private singing teaching is that too. So I ended up needing a job, and I saw an advertisement that was a bit like, we need you. Do you think you can handle these? Can you be available to be kind of caring and loving to the most challenging individuals that the education system can't handle? And I thought, yeah, that sounds like fun. So I ended up working for Nudge, which then led me to qualified tutor, which actually gave me a huge amount of confidence in what I already knew. I'm very lucky to have had some very good people kind of in my life. One of them is here tonight, Vicky. She's going to be really embarrassed, but she's a fantastic teacher. And when I was working in school alongside her, I learned huge amounts about teaching and learning, because I was the annoying teaching assistant who was always asking questions. Why did you do that? What do you do that for? But I think the thing that makes you a professional in anything is whether you are, which is a stupid thing to say, but if you're a lawyer or a doctor or a teacher, you do a qualification that legitimizes you as a professional, right? You have that qualification, and then you are a professional. You don't have that as a tutor necessarily. And I'm not advocating for a PGCE for tutors. I don't think that's the solution. But what I am saying is, by taking care of yourself, in terms of CPD, by attending courses, by reading books about the things that interest you, by learning from other specialists around you about I work with a lot of students who come under the SEND label, so by learning about their individual needs, their kind of individual differences, and how I can support them, that makes me a professional, because I'm actively seeking the information that I need in order to be better at my job. So that was kind of two questions in one.
Yeah. And several others as well. Jack, I don't know where to go from that answer.
Sorry,
but what I will take is that was a very complete answer, and that part of being a professional is that you, as you say, actively seek to progress and to advance your skills, which many tutors, and this is not a criticism of them, but many tutors don't do that, because they don't see tutoring as something that they will continue to do in 2 months, in 3 months, in 4 months, in 6 months, in a year. So that is probably what separates that kind of class of tutors as non-professional tutors, because they're seeking to do something else in the sort of near, short to mid-term future, and they probably are less likely to take a tutoring qualification. So already you're starting to put some parameters on what it means, and that's not the aim of this conversation, is to bracket or pigeonhole different types of educators. But I think it's good. It's empowering for tutors who want to be professional tutors to know what that entails to some degree. So no, certainly a very valid point, dressed up in much decoration.
To join the growing number of qualified tutors, enrol now for the Level 3 qualification for tutors. This 8-week online facilitated course covers the roles and responsibilities involved in teaching and learning, with a particular focus on inclusion, assessment, and feedback. Upon completion, you'll be awarded a Level 3 in education and training from Ofqual recognised training provider Highfield Qualifications. You will also gain a Qualified Tutor Quality Mark, the independent quality mark for tutors. Whatever your starting point, a qualification for tutors has to be the next step. Enrol today at qualifiedtutor.org/training.
We're going to turn now to this idea of moving away. Let's let more from the kind of denomination of a professional tutor, more towards some of the aspects of the kind of day-to-day life of a professional tutor. And Amanda, I want to start with you on this one. But we talk in tutoring a lot about going on a learning journey with your student, and that can mean a couple of different things. But if we are to keep that notion in mind, why does going on a learning journey with your student improve the trust and respect that builds good relationships?
I think because, and like I said, I may come at this from a different angle, because most of the children that I work with are struggling, and they're not necessarily getting the help they need at school. So it's, to me, their journey becomes sort of my journey, and it starts with finding out where they're at. And very often with the type, a lot of the students I deal with, there's actually this inner, this sort of underlying ripple of stuff that hasn't come out yet, whether it be that they're suffering from some kind of anxiety because they're being asked to read aloud in class and they can't read properly, or there's just something that's there that's waiting to come out. And for me, the sort of journey is sometimes finding what's actually going on with them. What their thought process with school, what is it about writing, the mechanics of writing, what are you struggling with? Because it's a big deal learning to write. And for those that struggle, that's, the putting it all together. And it's like, so let's work it out. Is it the spelling? Is it the reading? Is it the understanding? Is it the grammar? Is it, whatever sort of part, handwriting, if you're dyspraxic, it's sort of that, to me, is starting that and then making those little steps and getting to that result. And I'm very much that I will say to them, okay, our goal for the next few weeks is this. And, usually it is something that, other tutors would sort of like, yeah, but, you should be able to do that in a session, but that child is going to struggle so much that you have to do it in small steps. And it's really, really, really rewarding getting to the end. And I think for anybody, whether you're doing, work to get somebody through their GCSE or, teaching a child to read type of thing, you get that little bit at the end, and it's really special because that you've personally had some input in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicola,
did that answer your question?
Absolutely. Nicola, do you have any thoughts on that?
This one is that the relationship between tutor and tutee is pivotal, isn't it? I mean, you cannot tutor successfully unless you have a positive relationship, and of course that takes time. I think when we're talking about this kind of this learning journey, again, I'm going to go back to the same point, which is it's about making any student understand that it's not about a journey to an A star, a level 9, or whatever. It's a journey about getting better at something and finding out and establishing where you are and how to get to the next step and wanting to get to that next step. Well, actually, I think all kids do always want to improve. I think all kids want to learn all the time. It's just sometimes it's scary because they might fail. And so this is where your trust comes in. This is where building that relationship is so important, and building the opportunity for kids to make mistakes. I say kids, actually. I'm teaching a 32-year-old woman at the moment. She's fantastic. And she's also making mistakes. She's got to a point where she's being able to make mistakes and try things out and go, oh, I've no idea how to do that. And I'll say, well, let's try this because I don't really know either. We'll learn it together. And this is actually, this is the thing, isn't it? It's all about taking steps of progress and giving them the safety net to be able to fail, to be able to try new things, to investigate new stuff, and just feel safe in your company and feel that trust that you're on their side, essentially.
So, Nicola, that's really, really interesting. How did you approach, or how did you amend your style for a 32-year-old student?
I can't go into too much detail, but not much actually. To be perfectly honest, because ultimately, I mean, I mostly deal with writing and communication and things of that nature. That's mainly what I do, and I mean those rules are the same whether you are writing a proposal for a work report or whether you're writing a GCSE English essay. The rules that's why we do a GCSE in English, so that you are prepared, well, in theory, so that you are prepared when you go out into the world of work to write a report for somebody. So it is, the principles are exactly the same, and my jokes are just as bad. No matter how old you are, you're going to have to suffer the same thing, I'm afraid.
Are we going to get to hear any of them this evening, Nicola, or are you withholding them?
You have to pay for that sort of comedy, okay?
And because you're a professional tutor, the hourly rate is higher. Yeah, I get it.
Absolutely.
Richard, I think it was you who first brought up in the realms of this conversation the idea of going on a learning journey. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you found that?
When we started tutoring?
Yes.
Well, one of my first thoughts when I was getting was in planning, and I was worried about having enough material for each student. Is that where you want me to go?
Yes, please.
Yeah. And I realised before I even started really that every student's going to be different and they're all going to work at different speeds. And so what works for one student doesn't necessarily work for another. So if you've got two GCSE students in year 10, they're not necessarily going to work at the same speed. And so it's easier to fill an hour with one student than it is with another. And sometimes you might run out of work. So what I've learned to do is to have 2 lessons up my sleeve, so that if things go particularly well, and it goes easier and quicker than it might, then I've got another lesson that I can touch into. Not necessarily complete, but at least I can make a start on. And I've always got a spelling test up my sleeve. Always got something to turn to, and a spelling test is a good one. I sometimes use word searches for some of the younger ones. But it's about having something in reserve, really. But I think the thing about you have to assess how quickly or how well the student is working, and you can't do that in the first 2 or 3 sessions. It's a bit trial and error. So yeah, have plenty of work lined up is my recommendation, and have something up your sleeve.
Well, the more you say that, Richard, the less sure I am about what you mean by that. But I'm not going to press that too much because.
Well, it's easy when I'm sat here because I can just turn around here and I've got a book I can turn to, and in the back it's got all these spelling tests. You see, it's more difficult when you carry in a briefcase around, I suppose. But I've always got I used to always carry the Key Stage 2, Key Stage 3, and Key Stage 4. Commonly misspelt word lists, and really, even from the age of about 11, there are some really difficult words that children are expected to know. One that appears on my regular spelling lists is the word definitely. I challenge anybody. It's an I, not an A.
Richard, we're all writing down definitely now to make sure
I know.
we can spell it.
I was aware you'd all gone reaching for your pens, yeah? Definitely, not definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, defiantly. You get defiantly a lot as well, but
finite, yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe this what Richard is saying appeals more to English and humanities students than science and math tutors. But there's a certain amount of.
It's interesting you should say that, because I have said to some students who I know are particularly strong with maths, and I'd say, so how do you spell finite?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the younger ones, you can introduce Buzz Lightyear to infinity and beyond.
I don't know.
My way of having things up your sleeve, my one is very often having alternative words. So like for younger ones, what's an alternative word for said, and, get into all those adjectives, well, big and small, and what else can you say, massive, enormous. And it's always, sort of we play a game with something. So that's one of my go-tos. I also have been recently playing just on the whiteboard, noughts and crosses, but with words. So we, they have a word that they've learnt to spell, and I have a word, so we do noughts and crosses, and they love it. And it can, if you've got that last couple of minutes at the end to sort of do something. But yeah, I agree. It's always good to have something up your sleeve, just in case, and just in case it doesn't go to plan either. You have a child that has a meltdown on you, then you're like, ooh, okay, completely off plan. And you definitely, for that kind of thing, need something up your sleeve.
Yeah. Nicola, I'm going to turn to you next on something that you mentioned in the kind of the conversation around this podcast, which was that we as tutors we've got to try and take ownership of the enjoyment of our profession. That's why we do what we do. Now, could you unpack that a little bit more? And may I ask, do you mean by linking misspellings with Toy Story quotes? Is that what you mean? Was that part of what you meant there, or is that new to you too?
I can't remember exactly what I meant, to be honest. But in terms of, the whole idea of enjoyment, I mean, we are so privileged. We genuinely have the best job. I used to be a teacher. I did more than a dozen years in a classroom. I'm going to be completely honest. I wasn't a great teacher. Okay, put me in a classroom. I'm average at best. That's on a good day. I'm not a great teacher. I'm going to say it, I'm a pretty good tutor. And I'm pretty good for a number of reasons. But I think the main thing is that I'm just thrilled to be there every single time. And the reason I'm doing 40-hour weeks at the moment is I'm doing a very bad job of turning people down. In terms of enjoyment from my perspective, I mean, I do English and history. So I get to sit around and talk to teenagers about books and Nazis and communists and Tudors all day. And that's just awesome. And it's, and it's great fun. I mean, I was talking to a lad just before I came on today, a guy who've been working with for a few years who doesn't find school an easy place to be. And I know that feeling. I remember that as a teacher and a pupil. It's not an easy environment to be in. And who was saying about how much he was really not looking forward to his coursework in history. And I said, well, what's it going to be on? And he said, well, it's either going to be on Tudors or Civil Rights. I'm excited about that. That's fantastic. And I got very overexcited about Malcolm X for a bit because he's my history crush. And if you don't enjoy it, then for God's sake, don't do it, first of all. And if you don't enjoy it, then your students will be sat there watching the clock, and they will not benefit from it. And, admittedly, I may get a little carried away on occasions when some of my students are possibly a tiny bit scared of me. I'm not sure that's a bad thing. You've got to love what you do. It is a privilege. We are really lucky to do this. We are, frankly, really lucky to be doing this now when, let's face it, there is a greater need than there has ever been before. So, embrace it and do it because you want to, because there's no other good reason to do it, to be honest.
Jack, do you do what you do because you want to?
Oh, yeah. There you go. That's a good podcast answer, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have been, I've said a little bit before, I've been a teaching assistant in a school, and what I do with Nudge Education now is not dissimilar to what I did then, only now I have the time to do it. Now I'm paid to actually do that properly. Now I can actually support those kids who need it. I love my job. And I don't say that very often, and I can imagine doing it for a really long time. And I don't think I've ever said that before in my life. So, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad we were able to tease that out of you just towards the end of this podcast, Jack. I love my job. I do too. So there we go. And anyone else who does, please put a little thumbs up in the chat as well, because that's why we're here. There's really no other reason I can think of that this crowd of 10 or so listeners that we have with us and contributors that we have with us tonight would be here at 9:41 p.m. At the Love Tutoring Festival if they didn't at least love what they did. I hope so anyway. Thank you, Jack, for bringing that into the conversation. Now, we are coming to an end here. That's been a real good 35, 40 minutes of some different aspects of professional tutoring. It didn't necessarily go as I would have anticipated. There was some wonderful interjections there, principally from the one and only Richard Ashford, who took us down a little track of his own, which was pretty cheeky of him. But no, that there was really I think enough there or more than enough there for someone, for professional tutors at different stages of their journey through being a professional tutor to listen to learn from, and hopefully to add to. So I would like to thank the four of you. If there were any closing remarks that you had about being a professional tutor, some final words of wisdom for someone who is just beginning their journey as a professional tutor, the floor is yours.
Can I share one?
Please.
Find your tribe of people. Connect with other people, whether that's through the wonderful qualified tutor community or not. Being a part of a group of other people doing similar work has really helped me be emotionally available at work, because I can talk about what I'm doing, and offload some of that stress. But also, it's a space. When you're working in a school, you have the opportunity to have that conversation in the corridor, to have that conversation in the staff room, by the photocopier, wherever. You don't have that opportunity often as a tutor because you're working on your own. So find other people who you like and who like you, and talk about what you do with them, because that will keep you going for sure.
Completely agree, Jack. And I think that's been my pivotal point with, getting to know people and talking with people and sharing knowledge as well. So I really agree, because it can be quite lonely if you don't do that. And it can be, it's just you and you've got nobody to bounce an idea off. So yeah, that would be my point as well, to do that and to find your forte as well.
Yeah, excellent. Richard,
go.
Well, I think I would say, as a new tutor, maybe if you're a new tutor, work on giving value for money. I think you will be respected for giving your best to the job. Your clients expect a high standard, and sometimes they expect more than you can give, but you have to do your best.
Yeah, over-deliver if you can, because if we all over-delivered, then the world would be a much better place. Nicola, the final word lies with you.
Oh, lovely. I love it when that happens. I think the big thing is, especially for those of you who are teachers and are doing tutoring outside of teaching, do remember that distinction between the two things. They are very distinct professions. Teachers do an incredible, difficult job that I can't do. And when you go into being a tutor, you're no longer delivering content. What you're doing is helping to hone skills, and that is a different thing. That is much more about a dialogue and a conversation and a relationship, and it can last for years. I mean, the last student I had this evening, I've been seeing since he was in year 7. He's in year 13 now, and it's a wonderful, wonderful journey to go on with somebody. But remember, you do have this incredible advantage over teachers who have 30 people in the classroom. So get to know the kids that you're working with. Let them tell you what they need. Don't necessarily listen to the parents. Listen to what the students are telling you what they need. and make sure that you are responding to that.
Well, I'm very glad that we ended on that, Nicola. That's a vital point that we couldn't leave out of this discussion, certainly. So we've ended with those 4 final parting thoughts as well. So don't forget those. Don't forget as well that the recording of this podcast will be available in the community from this evening, if I'm able to find time, or on the Qualified Tutor podcast in the coming weeks. Thank you all very much for joining us. It's nearing 10 p.m. on Wednesday, the 30th of June. We are bringing to a close the 3rd day of the Love Tutoring Festival. I couldn't be more proud of everyone.
Wow. Good.
Yeah, exactly. Elizabeth has been here every step of the way with us. So thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you to all of our attendees this evening. And we will see you tomorrow for the 2nd day of our Teaching and Learning Days with a focus on the National Tutoring Programme. Cheerio, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Ludo. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Qualified Tutor podcast, where tutors share their expertise to support the tutoring community. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join our Qualified Tutor community at www.qualifiedtutorcommunity.org or find it in the show notes below. We exist to connect, share, and learn with you because tutoring is a small job that makes a big difference.